Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is Friday. Yay! Thank God it's Friday. And it's perfect because it's supposed to finally warm up here in Arkansas. I live in the Ozarks Northwest, and we've had some bitter cold weather and snow. In fact, the snow's still on the ground in Fayetteville, and it was down to 0 Fahrenheit, which is really damn cold in Arkansas. We need some global warming, but it's slowly going to warm this weekend, and by next week it's supposed to be in the 60s. So all the snow will melt, and that'll be a lot nicer. So I'm looking forward to this. I got some stuff to do. I got to finish up my taxes. I hate doing that. I hope eliminating the IRS and income tax. God, I put Trump on Mount Rushmore. I'm for that right now. Just tear down Lincoln and put Trump there. That would be like the best president ever. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And we'll talk about Trump tonight. A lot with foreign has been going on with Ukraine and Zelensky. But ironically, even though that's making the headlines, is I don't really think Trump's focus is on Ukraine. And what's driving his peace negotiations, I do think he cares about the people, the Ukrainians and Russians, and he thinks it's horrific. But Trump's an American nationalist. He wants what's best for America, the American people. I know, isn't that wild? That's hate. But he does. And he doesn't see any business value in this war. It's a lost cause. There's no way Ukraine can win this war. And that's been the case for years. I've been telling you that, not because I'm super smart, but I've been listening to smart people. I've looked at the data, kind of like I did with COVID. And I'm like, we're not getting the right story here. And we were given a lot of propaganda how Ukraine was winning and all this bullshit. It was a lie. It was just propaganda. The truth is, and J.D. Vance, we'll talk about that, but J.D. Vance came out. He's replying to people on X. J.D. Vance, just regular people. And he's just telling it like it is. Ukraine is losing. They can't win this war. That's just it. They don't have enough men. Russia has a lot more men. And, that's just how it is. So we got to get the best deal out of this. Trump wants to normalize relations with Russia, not because he's a secret Putin pawn or anything like that. He wants to normalize relations with Russia because it's good business. In a way, and I talked about on our show Z-Man last Wednesday. By the way, guys, you guys like Z-Man? I got a lot of positive feedback about that show. I had a blast. Z-Man is a very creative man. Can't wait to do that show. The Wednesday wrap-up, every Wednesday. But as I said with Z-Man then, and I'm not trying to compare Putin and Trump to like organized crime figures. Okay, but I'm doing an analogy. It's kind of like in The Godfather, they had the 5 families, and then they had a gang war between the families. And finally they resolved it because it wasn't good for business. It's just not good for business. I mean, you got to put the personal stuff behind, and we got to do what's good for business. And having a war in Ukraine and us pissing our money away in Ukraine is not good for the business of America. And it's also bad for Europe and Russia. But I don't think Trump really cares that much about that. That's their problem. But it's bad for us. And one of the ways it's bad for us is the whole energy thing. Because if we're allowed to Russia, we lower sanctions and Russia is able to export more energy. What does that do to the price of energy? It lowers it. What happens when you lower the price of fuel? It lowers inflation because everything requires fuel. So I think this is a great thing. You guys hit a home run with the show. Keep it up, Brian. I always liked Z-Man. He's one guy I read every day. The Z-Man blog, I highly recommend read it. And on Fridays today, every Friday he has a podcast, and it's not video, but he has a great voice, very interesting. And I've always enjoyed him. We kind of think the same way. And we met at American Renaissance, and we had a talk an hour and a half, 2 hours. They have like after the speeches, they have a party Saturday night. And I just had a glass of wine in my hand. He had a beer, and we just talked. A couple other people there too, but we just really hit it off well. So yeah, he's been really good. So thank you, Ryan, on that. But really, so this is what driving Trump is normalizing relations with Russia. Not because he loves Putin or anything like that, but he wants what's best for the American people. And Ukraine is one of those issues that Trump, he always reminds everyone that would have never happened if he had been president. And he's probably right. He could have worked something out. And as he said early on, if they had even a half-assed negotiator at the time, the war, it really wouldn't have happened, or it would have ended soon. And it almost ended soon. If you guys remember when Russia first invaded, and was it February? And then by March, I think it was, they already were negotiating with Ukraine. And in Istanbul, they came up with an agreement. And Ukraine signed off on it, agreed to it. But then the Biden regime under Blinken, we didn't want peace with Russia because they had the visions that we could defeat Russia with sanctions and by sending weapons to Ukraine. The neocons thought, this is finally our opportunity. Russia is a brittle country. It will fall apart. This would be like a big color revolution. We can send our people in there, break up Russia. BlackRock would get a lot of the minerals, and then we could get gay pride parades in Moscow. It will be wonderful. I really think that's what they thought. So they had Zelensky and his team renege on the deal, but they had a deal. It would have saved millions of lives. And so here we are 3 years later. Ukraine is losing. There's really no path to victory. Trump has said this. J.D. Vance has said this. And you could say before Trump was president again, what does he know? But he gets the satellite data. They understand this. J.D. Vance understands this, that there's no path. It's a losing cause. So they need to strike a deal. But the problem is they have this little hobbit in Ukraine, Zelensky, as Trump called him, a former mediocre comedian, that is intolerable. Zelensky's a narcissist. He's a liar. And you can't deal with him. And Zelensky refuses to negotiate. In fact, he put it in the Ukrainian constitution that it's illegal for Ukrainians to negotiate with Russia. So I don't even know what he's talking about. But the Americans, Trump and Putin talked, and they had a meeting in Saudi Arabia. And it really wasn't about Ukraine. They agreed that they would later talk about Ukraine, but that wasn't really the point. It was about how, at the first stage, was how let's reopen our embassies. We need to talk, right? I mean, it's dumb. Russia's a superpower, like them or not, as well as China and the United States. So you need to have the dialogue. Doesn't mean you have to agree with the people. You could hate them, but you need the dialogue opened. It's just common sense. You would think liberals would support that, but that had all been shut down under the Biden regime. So they're reopening the embassies. They've established a dialogue in a respectful manner. And this is the key thing too, is deal with your opponent respectfully. And that means dealing with it as an adult, not as a child. And the American response in the media, like Kamala Harris and the rest, is really childish. It frames everything in World War II and Mr. Mustache Man. And all our opponents are born-again Hitlers that for no reason, because they're just crazy, they want to take over the world, right? And that's not the case at all. In the case of Ukraine and Russia, it goes back a long time. You could go back, I don't know how far you want to go back to the Orange Revolution in 2002, but probably it started in 2014 when Victoria Nuland, a neocon, as part of Obama's administration, worked with George Soros to overthrow the democratically elected president of Ukraine. We put in our puppet that was hostile to Russia. There was various Minsk Accords that we negotiated to try to settle the peace that Russia agreed to. right away. Ukraine violated it, and we did. And so this whole idea that it was just one day Putin woke up and decided to invade Ukraine for no reason whatsoever is just really, it's childish. So with the Trump administration, they're dealing like adults. They're like, okay, we're not going to assault each other. Let's understand each other's positions. Where can we go from here? But it was a bilateral talks between Russia and America. It had nothing to do with Ukraine or Britain or anything like that. And it became very frustrating to Trump because they were all crying like bitches, like, why were we invited to this? Well, number one, this doesn't really involve you. It involves the United States and Russia. Any deal with Ukraine, obviously, we will invite you. We're not at that point. We're not even discussing that. We're just discussing how we can open diplomatic relations. That's all it was. But Europe and Zelensky were crying like bitches, and it pissed off Trump, and rightfully so, because Trump said, hey, where have you guys been for 3 years? You've had 3 years to open negotiations with Zelensky, right, Britain? Britain, France, you guys are supposed to be sophisticated Europeans. Why weren't you engaging in diplomacy? Same with Zelensky. Why weren't you engaging in diplomacy? And, so if done nothing like for 3 years, Trump gets in within 3 weeks, is already opening up diplomacy, you're not in a position to bitch and cry. You're just not. And it's just bad form to do that. So Trump got frustrated with that. And then Zelensky bitched and whined some more. And Trump just got tired and it just went off. Because one of the things with Trump that I think a lot of people don't understand, because we know someone that actually met Trump, just a regular guy. It was at a golf course years ago. This was before Trump was president, but he's still famous. And the guy met him in the washroom. They introduced, and Trump met him. And like years later, they met again just by random, and Trump remembered him. Just a normal guy. He goes like, oh, I forget the guy's name, but he's like, oh yeah, you're Bob. I remember. Trump is really good. Trump is really good with people, and I know they like to portray him as some evil, crazed dictator or evil man. He's not. He's very personable. He gets along with people, and he can really fight hard with people, I think in business first, but also in politics. But if you ever notice, he can just tear you apart. But if you fall back in the fold, it's like all is forgiven. You're like the prodigal son. Okay, you did a lot of bad things, and I got in a lot of fights with you. But hey, if you come back, all's good. All's good. Mark Rubio, remember little Rubio? He tore him up and down back in 2016? But now he's just Secretary of State, and Rubio's very compliant, and Trump's very happy with him and nice with him. So with Trump, going back to like the gangster Godfather analogy, it's just business, right? It's not personal, it's business. And he can get in rough fights with people, but at the end of the day, it's just business, or in this case, politics. It's not personal for the most part. But the problem is when it becomes personal, and then there's no way to forgive. And Zelensky somehow, because he's a strange man, he has he's a very entitled man, doesn't know how to thank people, is very arrogant. And he decided to hold a press conference during this whole thing and say that Trump is in like a disinformation bubble by the Russians, and the Ukrainians were trying to bring up the Russian Gate stuff again that was discredited, that, Trump is a secret Russian spy. And these are the people that depend on us, right? Zelensky, if it wasn't for us, he's going to be swinging from a telephone pole, that literally. And this is the thanks he gives us. And it just pissed off Trump, I think, very personally. And I think Zelensky might have signed his death warrant with him shooting his mouth off like that. And we just had an article yesterday in the New York Post, and they have pretty close ties to the administration. And it's an unnamed source, but I think it's probably true, that the best that Zelensky should hope for now is he should resign and flee to France. Yeah, that's what the administration is suggesting behind the scenes. And I wouldn't doubt that Zelensky's already got that message. Kellogg, for example, was in Kiev. And it was really strange because they were supposed to have like a press conference afterwards, but that was canceled. That's not a good sign. So Zelensky's definitely getting the message that he needs to go, but he should because he's a dictator. He wasn't elected. He was elected, but when there's a new election coming up, he just canceled it and he's staying on. And the president called him a dictator, and it's clear that Zelensky, his whole thing he wants to do is get us in World War III. And again, Trump was like, well, wait a minute. No, that's just really bad for business. What the hell are you talking about? We're not sending troops in. In Britain, if you want to send troops into Ukraine, well, have fun with it. How many troops you have? 5,000. Good luck with that, Brits. But we're not going to back you with security guarantees. So, meaning if Brits go into Ukraine and they get their asses killed, we're not going to bail them out. And it's because it's different than an Article 5 situation. Article 5 is part of NATO, whereas if like Russia should invade or attack Britain, we have an obligation under Article 5 to help defend Britain. We would do that in any other nation, NATO nation. But if they just go off on an adventure like it's like a repeat of the Crimean War in the 19th century. I don't know, maybe the Brits want to do that disaster over again. But if they want to go and fight the Russians in Ukraine somewhere or Russia, I think Trump's official position is I don't care, but we're not going to bail your asses out. That's your fight. It's not our fight. And Trump is very upset about all the money we've sent to Ukraine. And I really think it pissed him off. Again, Zelensky's not that bright. I don't understand how he thinks, Zelensky. You would think he'd be a little clever, like rat-like, but he says stupid things. Like, yeah, I don't know where half the money went you sent us. And it's not like we sent him $1 million or even $1 billion. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. And Zelensky goes, I don't know where half the money went. Well, that's not a good answer. That is not a good answer coming from a country that has a history, even before the war, of being the most corrupt country in Europe. Having half our tax money gone missing is not a good answer. And there's all sorts of things that are going to be looking now at Zelensky. And I think it's very clear that Trump wants to move on from Ukraine. And if Zelensky is unable to negotiate for whatever reason, he needs to go. And if he doesn't go, we're going to withdraw our funding and protection from Ukraine. And then they can have the Russians deal with him. I don't think he wants the Russians to deal with him. So we'll get into a lot of that today. But again, I think Trump's really, his passion is not Ukraine. It's the border, it's the economy, how he sees the United States in general, and getting rid of DEI, trying to defang the deep state. That's really Trump's priority. Ukraine is like if you're in a large corporation, you have some runaway project that has lost its focus and is taking millions of dollars, but it's going nowhere. You just want to scale that back. You want to claw that back, try to get what you can out of it. And that's how Trump is talking about the mineral rights from Ukraine. It's like, okay, you guys are bums. It's probably clear you're not going to pay us back. We got to almost like repo your shit then, because we need to get made whole. And this is one of the first presidents I've ever heard do such a thing. I just think this is wonderful, because usually in the United States, we give all this money to all these different countries and they screw us. They never pay us back. So it's like we give a loan, let's say to Brazil, not picking on Brazil, or some South American country. It's never coming back. It's just pissed away, even though it's a loan. Whereas now Trump is like, no, we want to be paid back, Ukraine, especially since you've lost half of it. And Elon Musk supposedly is going to be looking his team, the Doge boys, of what the hell's happened with the money. And that's probably not going to be a good look for Zelensky, because I have an idea where the money went, Probably went to mansions, Maseratis, jewelry, secret bank accounts. That's where your tax dollars went for a large part. And that's not a good look. And so there's a lot of corruption there that's going to be looked into. All right. It's kind of an opening, but thank you. Yeah, someone said about Vance mentioned Coach Red Pill. Yeah, he did. And we'll talk about that. It was really sad. I've had Coach Red Pill on my show, and he was murdered by Zelensky. And it was horrible. I'm glad, even though he died, his story's getting out there about the evil of the Ukrainians. They are not a free country. They murdered an American citizen, not because the American citizen did anything wrong. It's just the American citizen was critical of Zelensky. So Zelensky and the secret police had him murdered and tortured, for that matter. So I'm glad that's getting out, and that's good. All right, so getting back to the show here on Friday nights, usually I do the show at 11 a.m. Monday through Thursday. Fridays I do it at 8 p.m. It's a little bit more informal. And I'm putting in the chat here a StreamYard link that if you want to call in, you don't have to use a camera. When you go on to StreamYards, you can just turn off your camera and you can ask a question. And if you want to call in, that'd be good. All I ask is if you do call in, just quickly ask your question or make your comment, because I like to keep the show going at a good pace. I learned that like listening to Rush Limbaugh. A good caller gets to the point really quick, so I don't want to cut someone off. But if you want to speak more, join my Substack. Every Tuesday we have a round table. We allow people to get your opinion out, in full. But on Friday nights, just get to the point real quick. And so I put that link in there. Feel free to call in. And I already got some power chats. And by the way, I do not get any USAID money. I don't have Maseratis. I don't have secret bank accounts. That's other people get that. I don't get any of that. I really appreciate any of your questions and support. Again, if you haven't joined my Substack, today I had a special video just for my Substack members. I do that every Friday. But Monday through Thursday, I do free columns to everyone on my Substack. So even if you don't become a member, follow me on Substack to get the free column. I love Substack. It's a great tool. I pretty much migrated off of Gumroad, not because I had any problem with Gumroad on a personal basis or political or anything like that. It was just they had technical problems, not just me. Other people have problems with them. So Substack is a more up-to-date platform. It's huge. I mean, everyone's on Substack, and it really works well to put out content. You could put out videos, you could put out columns, podcasts, and it's robust. I've never had an issue with it. When I post a article, I get it like that because I get a notification on it. Whereas Gumroad, sometimes it'd be like a day delay, and we can't do that. So anyway, join Substack. But if you have a question, YouTube has Super Chats, Rumble has rants, and and then there's Power Chats here. Power Chats you can do even when the show's not live. So if you have a question and you're watching the show later in the weekend, send in a Power Chat. I do appreciate that. And I already got a Power Chat, 2 Power Chats from Kim in Finland, and he's a good friend from Finland. I've showed his truck. He drives one of those big 18-wheelers, and he's got a nice family, beautiful daughter. He sent me her pictures, and I want to say thank you, Kim. $50. That is incredible. Wow, thank you, Kim. Hey, Rams. Western elites think they are important. They are not. If they quit their work, no one notices. If all truckers quit, I didn't even read this because Kim is a trucker. It's over instantly. Please show the picture where I was stuck on the country road. 74,000 pounds of water. Yeah, I will show that. I won't show that during this show, but in the next show, I don't have it prepped. I just read it right now. But yeah, thank you for sending me that pic. Kim, he drives a big 18-wheeler. And Finland, it can be rough in the winters, and that is a job that requires a lot of skill. Remember the truckers in Canada when they were protesting Trudeau and all that bullshit? Um, truckers are key. They keep the economy alive. I admire people that do that. And yeah, the elites, I don't have very much respect for in Europe. We have really bad elites. We used to have, I think, better elites. I think we're getting a little better ones here in America with like Elon Musk and Donald Trump. We still have our issues, but Europe is pretty pathetic. I mean, Macron, a Starmer. I mean, they're pretty pathetic on that. Girl boss Ursula. Yeah, they're pretty incompetent. So thank you, Kim, for that. And then Kim also $3 about the Four Nations tournament. Finland beat Sweden. Oh, that had to be huge for Finland because when I've been to Finland, they have a history with Sweden. They're kind of like competitors. I think Sweden used to control Finland. Finland, Canada was a close call. Canada won, which isn't a huge surprise. Gave a hell of a fight. Great tournament. Yeah, I actually watched it the other night, the Canada USA hockey game. I know President Trump called our hockey team before the game, and it was good to see it. And one of the things, as I said, it was funny because I talked about it today on my Substack. I was rooting for the United States, and it was a good game. It went into overtime, but I was okay with Canada winning. In a sense, I'm really happy to see some Canadian nationalism because they've been so beaten down with immigration and, oh, there's no such thing as Canada. We need Indian that wants to come here, Pakistani. This is Canadian as anyone else, all that bullshit. And we don't have a language. We don't have a culture. They've been real demoralized. And because of Trump and his 51st state thing, it's really the Canadians, if they're either liberal or conservative, they rallied around the Canadian flag. And that's really a good thing. And I think, I don't want to subscribe to, use the phrase 4D chess for everything, but this could be a little bit of 4D chess Trump is doing to Canada and even Europe, is antagonizing them so that they will stand up on their own. I did a video about that today. Some of this, I think, may be deliberate and is actually a good thing. I want to see Canada stronger. I want them to control their borders. And hey, if it requires heeding the United States to do that, I'm okay with that because we can take it. And we understand we're a safe target because, Donald Trump's a white Christian male. And I understand Canadians and the Brits and everything. Obviously, they can't criticize a Muslim or someone that's brown or a homosexual. I get it. You guys are scared or Jewish. But with us, you can. And so we'll be your bad guy if that can rally you around the flag. So, I know Trudeau, who's a piece of shit, but even Pierre, his competitor, they were all together on that. So I think it was good to see nationalism with Canada. And again, the players were all white guys, and that was a good look too. They were like traditional Canadians. I didn't see any Indians. I didn't see any women. It was just white guys. And it was like the old Canada. And I was happy to see that. So it was a good tournament. I like Finland. I would have root for them too. I was rooting for America, but that was good to see. Hey, and I got I was rooting for America. Hey, John, I got you in for a call. Just turn off your volume in the background because you're echoing. That's like the old radio thing. It's like, turn down your volume before you ask a question. So I'll try it now. Okay, John.
I just did that. Does it work now?
Yeah, perfect. You ever listen to old radio programs? I always say, turn down your volume because there is a little lag and so this is good.
I'm kind of curious. The way I'm kind of reading the tea leaves, it looks like Eastern Europe and Western Europe have two completely different mentalities. Eastern Europe, I think, wants to be a part of NATO. Western Europe and Canada doesn't even want to pay their fair share. Canada
Hmm.
is like paying like 1.3% something. And Trump is putting all the pressure, but that's really Western Europe, I think, that needs the kick in the butt. Um, with it seems like Brussels wants Ukraine to join the EU and everything. Well, that's going to undermine the grain trade, the farming and everything in Poland. Ukraine sued Poland over that, and I think with all of the Soros and Biden's friends and all that, I think they're very heavily invested in Ukraine and the outcome. And what I'm kind of seeing is like if Western Europe is going to bringing in really cheap grain from Ukraine as a new EU member, it's just going to undermine the family farm in Poland and everything. And they're going to end up having to sell out to corporations or whatever. I don't see Eastern and Western Europe staying together. I think they're going to split down the middle over this Ukraine issue. And I think I don't know. I think Trump is really, and JD Vance are doing a great job to try to get Europe to really see that it's got to, I guess, have more unity and get back to democratic values. But anyway, I'm a little nervous, but
No, you did really well. Thank you. It was a great call, and I'll answer your questions here. So thank
thank
you
you.
very much for calling in.
Thank you.
By the way, that's the example of a great call. Great caller, John. Your points about NATO. Well, Ukraine's not going to be part of NATO. The United States has made that very clear. Russia has made it very clear will be no agreement if Ukraine is part of NATO. And by the way, that was one of the reasons they stated, remember 3 years ago when they invaded Ukraine, one of the reasons they said was because Ukraine wanted to become part of NATO. And then we heard, no, they never did. And now, yeah, they did. And so anyway, Russia said there's not going to be any at all. Ukraine is not going to be part of NATO. And the United States said, yeah, that's not going to happen. So it's not going to happen. I'll just tell you that right now. And because the United States is not going to tolerate it. And without the United States, I mean, if Europe wants to make a big fit about it, I think the United States is very serious. We'll say, well, there's no need for NATO anyway. First of all, NATO should have been disbanded in 1989 when communism fell. There was no need to have NATO. Once the Warsaw Pact was gone, the Warsaw Pact was kind of the counter to NATO, and that was made up of Soviet Union, Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia at the time it was called, Hungary. That was the Warsaw Pact, and then NATO was like a balance to that. But once communism fell, there was no need to have NATO. But, like any bureaucracy, people had all their jobs. They wanted to keep them. So NATO continued on for really no purpose. They try to reposition themselves. Oh, well, now it's terrorism. That's why we got to stay around for terrorism. It was all ridiculous. So without the United States, and John, you're right, and that's one of Trump's complaints, is we fund NATO, like 95% of it. And all the other European countries are extremely weak when it comes to the military. That's why it's partially a joke when Europe is having all these plans to have peacekeepers in Ukraine. It's like you don't have any, really, you don't have armies. You don't have weapons. So what are you saying? It's just ridiculous. So, yeah, that's not going to happen. That's a non-starter. And part of the trouble, there has been a lot of corruption in Ukraine with a lot of people, including Hunter Biden. He was on their board of directors of the energy, Burmisa. Extremely corrupt country, and a lot of politicians engaged in a lot of money laundering out of Ukraine. And we had like bio labs. There was a lot of dirty stuff that was done in Ukraine. Kind of like the Wild West, really, over there. So, yeah, I do think one of the things that Trump is doing, it's early to say, and I hate to be, after 4 weeks of saying this, but Trump is looking to be an extremely historic figure, not only in American terms, but in world terms. And I hate to throw out comparisons to other, like Napoleon or something like that. Yeah, this may be premature, but it's starting to, or Bismarck or something like that. But Trump is not like just a George W. Bush or a Mitt Romney or whatever, or Obama. He is looking to change things domestically and internationally that we've never seen. Domestically, we'll talk about that. He's reestablishing the presidency is strong, attacking these weak courts that try to meddle in the executive branch, and he's getting rid of the deep state. But even on the foreign stage, we're seeing a realignment. And I think Trump sees America that has control of pretty much all North America. That's why he does that 54th state bit and Panama Canal bit and Mexico's, if they don't get their act together with the drug cartels bit, because this is our playground. North America, we own this one way or the other. China, they can own the Asia, and Russia can own the Near East. I think that's how he sees the world breaking apart. And as such, Ukraine's not really our business. Now, Russia better keep the fuck out of Greenland or Canada or Mexico, but, we don't have an interest in Ukraine. And so Trump is rearranging all the world, and Europe is not as relevant anymore just because they've become weak over years, really since the Second World War. Before the Second World War, Europe was the strongest continent, stronger than the United States or even Russia. You can count Russia as part of Europe, but it's kind of separate. But then after the war, they've been in decline for a lot of reasons, and they are a very weak continent now. And that sometimes there's talk about making a European army, but they're such a poor country now, or poor countries, just backwards. I mean, if you go to like England versus China, China's technologically way advanced. England's drab and dreary. They're just being overrun with third world immigrants. They have they're dispirited people. All they can do is start arresting people that complain about the situation. It's a very sad situation, and they need to turn that around. And just like I said, Trump was trying to turn that around with Canada, give them some national pride. I think with Europe, they're going to get a lot of tough love. Like, well, we're not going to stick around Europe forever. It's been 80 years. The war's over. There's no need for NATO. Europe, you need to get your own act together. We can't coddle you anymore. And you're not really that relevant, to be honest. And I think it hurts the European pride because France, always a great nation. Britain, rules the sea, rural Britannia. The sun never sets on the British Empire. Well, that used to be true, but now they're just kind of a sad, pathetic little island that has lost their will. And that pains me because that's my ancestry. And Germany, well, they were defeated in 2 wars and they're basically occupied, and they've been dispirited by alien forces. So, yeah, for the most part, Europe's had a lot of problems with that. I think mostly Europe is a spiritual problem. And some countries haven't. And you're right, John. Eastern countries like Hungary have been able to resist that. And even what was East Germany, they tend to support like the AfD more, the nationalist parties. So they didn't really get all the brainwashing as much as like West Germany did. And so, yeah, I do think there's a huge realignment that's going to be happening. NATO could be dissolved. The EU's in danger of falling apart. It really is. J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich Security Conference, I think, will go down in history. It was only 22 minutes. But he basically said, you guys are the bad guys now. You're the ones that are acting like the Soviet Union. And supposedly we were there to protect liberty and freedom, but you don't respect those concepts. You arrest people, you have thought police. You even, in the case of Britain, arrest people for saying a silent prayer. How can we as Americans give our tax dollars to support that? What are we defending? And so that is the case. And I got another caller, 009. Welcome to the Ramsey Paul Show.
Yeah, I had a quick question. You were talking about the people of Europe being despirited. What
Yes.
do you suggest they can do to get re-spirited? To get some spirits inside them. What can they do to regain that spirit?
That's a good question. And of course, they do have spirits like this, but yeah, they need, I think the spirit they need is it's okay to be like, and even Putin said this, and Putin, they hated the Nazis in Germany. But even Putin is like, God, Germans, you don't have to keep beating yourself up over that. I mean, a lot of that was propaganda anyway. But you can be proud to be German. And Brits, you can be proud of your empire was wonderful. You helped to create civilization. You ended slavery. I mean, really, the British helped to end slavery worldwide. They raised people out of ignorance. They brought India from being a primitive, savage part of the continent to be actually civilized in many ways. Britons did a lot of great things. And you got to have pride in your people, not just always be torn down. So I think the people need a sense of pride and of something more than themselves. And even spiritually, I think it used to be a Christian nation. They have to have faith in something more than just random sex hookups or something. Again, they just seem very hedonistic. There's no purpose in their life. And I would like to see the Europeans take pride in themselves. That's why I got kind of neat. I thought it was neat to see. I know Canada is not Europe, but kind of. Philosophically, they are. And it was nice to see them take pride in their hockey team. Even though it's a small thing, it was nice. I would like to see like Brits take pride in Britain and wave the Union Jack. I would like to see Germans say, we're a great people, the Germanic people. We don't have to have all these foreigners in our country. They go back to their homeland. We have a right to our homeland. I would love to see that. I would love to see that with the French and take pride in their country and kick out all the Africans that have been pouring in there. They don't have to take them. That I would love to see that. Same with the Italians and so forth. Go down the list. I would love to see that. And once they develop more individual pride in their nations, then there's less of a need for the EU. And the EU is really unworkable anyway. I would like to see them abandon that project, get rid of the euro, go back to their national currencies, and have the Brits focus on Britain, Germans focus on Germany. Wouldn't it be nice if the Germany had a government that cared about the German people? Just like Donald Trump's been revolutionary in that he's actually a man that cares about Americans. I know that's considered hate, but he does. It'd be nice if these other countries did that too, like Italy. No, we're not going to take in these Africans because it's bad for the Italian people. It doesn't help us. Or Sweden saying, we shouldn't have no-go zones. I don't care if they're here legally or not. These no-go zones are not Swedes or Muslims. They got to go. And Barbara Specter can go too. All the people that promoted this, they can go too. They don't belong in our homelands. And we're not perfect, but we don't want to have to live where you have grenade attacks and no-go zones and all that. We're not going to live that way. You guys have to go. And you're different people. And maybe you can make your homelands nice. Maybe not. That's not our issue. And hopefully Donald Trump can give an example of that spirit going forward. I really hope he can, meaning that because a lot of times what America does, Europe and the rest of the world follows. We kind of went on this woke journey and then the rest of the world started to follow that. And now we've kind of abandoned that and the world is a little behind us. I hope they start to follow that too. Any predictions on whether any Democrats will be criminally charged pronto? If so, who do you think will be first? Canadians are God's frozen people, by the way. I like that. God's frozen people, Canadians, instead of chosen. I do think some will be charged. I don't think Trump and his administration is playing around. I don't think they're goofing around. I don't know who will be the first, but anyone that doesn't go with the program will be charged. And I think Trump has learned his lesson from his first administration. I think in the first administration, he really was trying to be the nice guy and reach out to the Democrats. And they did nothing but try to sabotage him. In fact, his own administration, he didn't have control over. The FBI were working against him and planting evidence. And we saw that. He didn't understand the USAID. He didn't understand that. His organization, as part of the executive branch, was funding people that were working against him. He understands that now. And he's going after the snakes and he's beheading them, right? That's how you killed a snake. I had a big snake on my property. That's how I killed it. Cut off his head. He's cutting off the head of the snake. And so I do think there are going to be criminal prosecutions, and there should be. There should be. The left has done a lot of bad things, and they need to answer for that. All right. And let's talk a little bit. We're starting to see, and then again, this isn't really new, but it's becoming more in the public consciousness. And Elon Musk said this is the tip of the iceberg. Just so you guys know, because someone had like a gotcha, like 3 years ago, Elon Musk was pro-Ukraine in the Ukrainian war. And that's really changed because he's seen what's happened. And it looks like here that there's been millions. Ukraine says defense officials stole 40 million meant for mortar munitions. And again, Elon said this is the tip of the iceberg. I believe him. You could debate one way or another, should have we sent military aid to Ukraine? I don't think we should have. But I don't think it's debatable that the aid we did send them, half of it should be stolen to corrupt officials. And that's what happened. There wasn't any control. So half the money we were sending over there was being embezzled by corrupt people. That needs to, we need to look into that, and we need to stop that as soon as possible and hold people accountable. And it's a little bit more about Elon Musk talking about this a little bit.
How many more years should have empathy for the people dying at the front lines? That's the most important thing. And people have been dying, it's like, how many more years is this supposed to go on?
Yeah.
And imagine if that was your son, your father, what are they dying for?
Yeah.
What exactly are they dying for? That line the line of engagement has barely moved for 2 years.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of people dead in trenches for what? And I'll tell you what for what. It's like for the biggest graft machine that I've ever seen in my life. That's for what.
That's amazing because, Elon Musk is really tied into these operations and he's calling it the war. It's funny because Smedley Butler, I think his name was, he was a Marine years ago that said that war is a racket. And there's always been this aspect of war. And it's funny because this used to be the left's talking points, or the Democrats. Now the liberals and the left are pro-war. And it's the people on the so-called right that are saying, wait a minute, these wars are mostly rackets. A lot of poor young boys are being killed and forever maimed. It's horrific what's happening. For what? And it's making a lot of people in Ukraine and elsewhere very rich.
It's unreal. Like the amount of money that is being taken in graft and bribery is disgusting. And so what's actually happening is that those people, those poor guys are getting sent into a meat grinder for money. That's what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And it needs to stop.
And it seems, Trump is so pragmatic on this. He's just looking.
Yeah, so it does need to stop. It's not accomplishing anything. It's a slaughter. Thousands, I don't know if you guys know, but thousands die every day. And Trump has said this. He knew that before. He's president now. He sees the satellite images. He says we don't see, and it's horrific. And it's almost reminiscent of World War I, the trench warfare, this mass slaughter of people. It's really destroyed a generation of young Ukrainian men, and it is it needs to stop. And we shouldn't be part of funding such a war. If there's a couple of reasons. One is because it's not in the interest of the United States, but it's also morality. It is horrible. All right. One of the things Trump, when he got mad at Zelensky, called him a little dictator or whatever, which he is. But then he was saying that, Zelensky's a horrible leader. He has about a 4% popularity. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, we've done the polls. He has 57% popularity. And as Elon Musk quipped, oh, well, if that's true, then he should have an election. He will be sure to win, right? Why not have an election if you're that popular? But that 57% number, like almost everything out of Ukraine. I mean, if you want to know just cynical, corrupt, crooks, liars, again, I'm sure the Ukrainians in general are good people, but you don't get more corrupt people on the planet than you get in Ukraine or leadership. Liars, thieves. And this is another thing. This 57% number is a lie. It was based on the Kiev Institute of Sociology, which is run by Zelensky. It's so ridiculous. And by the way, it was also indirectly funded by you, the USAID. What an evil organization. Thank God Trump shut that organization down. But yeah, a horrible organization. And so that 57% was based on Zelensky's firm that obviously is fake. So that is what's happening there. All right. JD Vance has been brilliant on X. I've never seen a politician really write significantly on social media in an intelligent fashion, including Trump. I mean, Trump uses social media and he's funny and he puts out his points and they can be very impactful, but he's not really as sophisticated in how he writes. Whereas JD Vance would be like one of us actually just getting on there and writing, and he responds just to regular people and responds to their concerns. It's really kind of fascinating how he does that. And let's talk a couple of these things I just want to show what JD Vance wrote. And I could tell he wrote it himself. This wasn't his PR team. And as you can see, he's an intelligent man. He's a clever man. And he's responding to some of the stuff he saw on X. And one of the things he was talking about, on the general background, yes, you have been more right than wrong on a lot of details, which is why I'm surprised to hear you call the administration posture as appeasement. We are negotiating to the end of the conflict. It is appeasement only if the Ukrainians have a credible pathway to victory. They don't, so it's not. And JD Vance, he sees the security evaluations, and this is just reality. There is no path to victory for the Ukrainians. There just isn't. They don't have the men. And Europe, we're not sending men over there to die in the fields in Ukraine. Europe doesn't have the will to do it. And they're all pussies, let's face it. They don't have an army. So there's just no way. There's just no path. And then he said this whole idea of appeasement. And the reason that they throw out the appeasement, it's like they're stuck in 1938. Everything is Chamberlain negotiating with Hitler. They're stuck in that. And it's just so historically illiterate, but they keep bringing that up. And he was talking about JD Vance it's not appeasement to open up dialogue. And that's all it's done right now. There's been no deals. It's just, let's just discuss with dialogue. And so he was just talking about some of these things, JD Vance. I think it's worth a read. I'm not going to read it all. But the important thing is this whole idea of appeasement, the idea that any discussion with an enemy is appeasement, and everyone's Hitler, and it's just stupid thinking that gets millions of people killed. And it's not in our interest to do that. It's strictly not. And a lot of people in the administration, even Rubio, and Trump brought this up. I think it was Trump, or one of the people did. But even Joe Biden got pissed off and started to swear at Zelensky, called him an ungrateful bastard. Because Zelensky, I guess, is very difficult to deal with. He's a liar, and he's very entitled. He's narcissistic. And I think Trump is right. He doesn't want to step down because he likes being in the limelight. And as you can see, the feeling for Zelensky is
About how
really
he cursed
turned.
at him
So
in the
let's
phone
take a look at
When
Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio's pretty measured. I mean, Trump says stuff pretty, he's kind of wild. But let's listen to Rubio. Rubio's pretty calm.
President Trump posts that President Zelensky is a dictator without elections. What are you thinking?
I think President Trump is very upset at President Zelensky, and in some cases, and rightfully so. Look, number one, Joe Biden had frustrations with Zelensky. People shouldn't forget it. There are newspaper articles out there
Oh, this is the one, yeah. Rubio said this.
about how he cursed at him in a phone call because Zelensky, instead of saying thank you for all your help, is immediately out there messaging what we're not doing or what he's not getting. I think the second thing is, frankly, I was personally very upset because we had a conversation with President Zelensky, the vice president and I, three of us.
Yeah, this was at Munich before the Munich Security Council. Rubio and J.D. Vance, someone else, they met with Zelensky privately to discuss situations with him. We'll listen to this, what happened.
And we discussed this issue about the mineral rights. And we explained to them, look, we want to be in a joint venture with you, not because we're trying to steal from your country, but because we think that's actually a security guarantee. If we're your partner in an important economic endeavor, we get to get paid back some of the money the taxpayers have given, close to $200 billion. And it also, now we have a vested interest in the security of Ukraine.
And the whole mineral rights issue, by the way, everyone said, oh, it's just America trying to be imperialist, take their resources. You know who floated that idea first? It wasn't Trump. It wasn't Rubio. It was Zelensky. Back in November, after Trump won the election, Zelensky went to Mar-a-Lago, and Zelensky floated the idea, hey, why don't we'll give you some mineral rights that,
And he said,
be
sure,
as
we wanna
like,
do this deal. It makes all the sense.
okay, as collateral. And so Zelensky brought that up back in November. He's the one that floated the idea. And by the way, the whole mineral rights thing could be a lot of bullshit. They may not have the minerals after all. But that's another subject. So anyway, let's listen to what Zelensky told them in this meeting before the Munich Security Conference.
He said, sure, we want to do this deal. It makes all the sense in the world. The only thing is I need to run it through my legislative process. They have to approve it. I read 2 days later that Zelensky's out there saying, I rejected the deal. I told him no way that we're not doing that. Well, that's not what happened in that meeting.
So Rubio is basically calling Zelensky a liar. Rubio and J.D. Vance met with Zelensky in private. They had a understanding. Hey, do you still want to do that mineral thing? Zelensky says, yeah, I'm excited about it. I just need to get the rubber stamp from my legislature. They're not really, he's kind of a dictator, but so, Rubio and J.D. Vance say, cool, we'll look forward to that. And then minutes later, day later, he's bad-mouthing Rubio and J.D. Vance, saying, oh, I had to veto it. They're trying to steal from me. And Rubio and J.D. Vance are like, what the fuck is this little rat doing? What the fuck is this little slimeball doing? And I talk about a stab in the back. And remember, the only reason that J.D. Vance, Zelensky's not swinging from a light pole, which could be coming quick, is because of our gracious help to that little dictator. And this is how he repays his benefactors. Right? He's always begging us for money. And by the way, he's done very well personally somehow. His wife, when they came to New York City to beg more money of your tax dollars, his wife went jewelry shopping in New York City and ran up a $1 million bill on one afternoon, your tax dollars. And this is a little piece of shit that is just, he acts this way. And it's really bizarre the way he acts. What do you think people, I don't know. Biden, as Trump said, didn't really know what's going on. But Trump knows, Rubio knows, and these are guys that even Kellogg knows, and these guys that used to be more sympathetic, and they're like, what is this little midget doing? He's a liar. He's not reliable. We're trying to help him out. He agrees with us in private. An hour later, he's bad-mouthing us. What's he doing here exactly?
So you start to get upset by somebody. We're trying to help these guys. One of the points that the president made in his messaging is not that we don't care about Ukraine, but Ukraine is on another continent. You know, it doesn't directly impact the daily lives of Americans. We care about it because it has implications for our allies and ultimately for the world. There should be some level of gratitude here about this. And when you don't see it and you see him out there accusing the president of living in a world of disinformation, that's very counterproductive. And I don't need to explain to you or anybody else, President Trump's not the kind of person that's going to sit there and take that.
No. What he's saying here, which I've often, and I haven't heard this said this enough, but I saw how J.D. Vance replied and Rubio. Again, you can fight with Donald Trump on a political leader or on a business deal, and he can get nasty with you. You can get nasty with him, whatever. His business. But Zelensky made a mistake that all these guys, I could tell, they're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He just made it personal with Trump. And you could say that Trump should be a bigger man and not be vindictive. But when he gets personally insulted, Donald Trump does not forgive. The other thing, he'll forgive. He understands just business or just politics, whatever. I'll say mean things, you say mean things. We'll all be happy later on. But if you personally insult me, then it's not just business, it's personal. Zelensky made it personal to Donald Trump. And everyone I've seen that knows Donald Trump is like, what the fuck was Zelensky thinking? He cannot recover from this. And even Putin said he was shocked at the boorish behavior. And there's certain things you don't, there's a couple of things you don't do publicly, especially when you're a small country that depends on someone like Ukraine is, right? Without the United States, they lose quickly because France is weak, Britain's weak, Europe's weak. So I'm not going to count Europe because they're honestly, and I'm not trying to hurt European feelings. I would like to see Europe great again. Make Europe great again. I would like to see that. I think you guys are very intelligent people. That's my ancestry, the ancestry of most people who watch my show. I want to see you guys be great. I want to see you guys be powerful again. I really would like that. But you're not. You're a dispirited, just a mess. You don't have any armies to speak of. You have these girl bosses. You have that one commissioner that actually held the Munich conference that broke down in tears because of what J.D. Vance said. A grown man broke down into tears like a little bitch. I'm just saying to Europeans, that is very embarrassing. The rest of the world, it makes us, ugh. I don't know how you guys tolerate that. So it's just us. So Zelensky, he depends on us. And he can behind the scenes to his wife or his mistress or whoever, his drinking buddies, he can say all sorts of nasty things he wants. But when you're saying something publicly and you talk trash about the president that really your life is on the line. Not for Donald Trump could have Zelensky removed like that and permanently removed. And not many tears would be shed. And when you're in that situation and you still decide it's a good idea to publicly badmouth the guy you want endless amounts of money from, it's just bizarre. It's a very bizarre behavior. I don't know if he's on cocaine, as rumored, or what the fuck's wrong with him. But Zelensky, once he did that, even people like Rubio are like, yeah, he needs to pack his bag and go to wherever he has the secret bank accounts or whatever, because he can't be a part of this anymore.
He's very transparent. He's going to tell you exactly how he feels. And he sent a message that he's not going to get gamed here. He's willing to work on peace because he cares about Ukraine. And he hopes Zelensky will be a partner in that and not someone who's out there putting this sort of counter messaging to try to, hustle us in that regard. That's not going to be productive here.
Hustle us. So he's talking of Zelensky like he's a two-bit pimp, which pretty much he is. That is pretty strong language from Rubio. And Rubio's a very measured man. He's not like some real radical right-winger or anything like that. So when Rubio is saying, you're not going to hustle us, and when Rubio basically calls you out that you're a liar, that you lied to him and J.D. Vance, you agree to with them. An hour later, you're trash talking them. I don't know. I don't know what Zelensky's thinking. I really don't. Maybe you guys Europeans can explain it to me. But from an American mind, I don't understand this. I don't understand how you behave that way publicly to someone that you're dependent upon. It's just very weird. I think something went to his head or whatever. But that's why I think the United States is giving some pretty strong hints. I think Kellogg told, I can't prove this because we don't know what Kellogg told Zelensky, but I think he told Zelensky that if he values living a long life, supposedly he told him he needs to go to France. He needs to flee and go to France. And we'll see what he does, but that is what is happening there. All right, let's take a look here. This got me mad here, but here we go. The whole corruption with this over the past few years, and I always suspected this is what was happening.
$4.8 million spent in Ukraine for social media influencers.
So you guys, by the way, thank you so much, all of you who gave super chats and rants to help support me. I think you do that, hopefully, because you like the content I make, and you're like, hey, I want more like this. I'm happy to do this. And I'm so happy, right? But you do that of your free will. But there were social media influencers like myself, but it wasn't me, that were being paid by you. And you didn't have a choice in it. When you pay your taxes, and you have to pay your tax, you're at gunpoint. You have to, let's just be honest. They're saying, no, we're going to take your money that you work hard to make, and we're going to give it to a social media influencer to support Ukraine. Understand what they were doing here. So all these people that were supporting Ukraine on Twitter and YouTube, a good percentage of them weren't supporting Ukraine because they really believed in the cause, but because they were being paid by you against your will.
While you're at it, we spent, not we, but the people who vote for this, I've voted against all of this, but the members of the Senate who voted for this spent several $100,000 sending designers in Ukraine to the fashion show in Paris. It goes on and on.
This is the idea that our government, and we've seen this is what's happened, but our government has run psyops against you with your taxes. So a lot of these people that are saying the exact same narrative, verbiage on what was Twitter or even 4chan or YouTube comments, they were on the take. They were being paid off. Outrageous. We need to know who those people were that were getting money. I want to see them shown. I want to see the people that were getting this money. Who were they? And we got a new FBI director, and he's not very impressed with Ukraine either. So let's take a look here. Kash Patel.
I've asked this Congress to investigate where has this money gone. The American people are owed that answer because it's our money. It's our taxpayer dollars.
And there's a lot of really good reason to be concerned because, the Ukraine was known as a, place of corruption, a place for money laundering.
Yeah, Hunter Biden being one example.
Yeah. It's not like we sent $1 billion, as if that was even a small number to begin with, right? We've sent 100 times that to one country. I don't know how this Congress is allowed to get away with it. And Zelensky is out there. He went on the world stage and said, Russia fired a rocket into Poland, which would literally be an act of war. Well, it turned out that Russia fired no such rocket. It turned out that the rocket came from the Ukraine and was fired into Poland.
And it was a mistake, basically.
If Zelensky's going to go out there and beg the world for more money and come to the U.S. and sit in the well of our Congress and say, we want more money, and then call and demand the new Speaker of the House provide more and more money, and call Mitch McConnell and say, we need more and more machinery, he needs to be more prepared about global statements that bring us to the precipice of war than doing what he did last fall.
You read between the lines, he's saying that Zelensky deliberately was trying to instigate a false flag, which he tends to do a lot. Just last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? Remember the drone attack on Chernobyl? It wasn't Russia, it was Ukraine, but they were trying to do a false flag. This little prick has been doing this for a long time. Just think what that would mean, a war between nuclear powers. This guy was literally probably trying to destroy your whole families in America by this false flag. And if you look at what Patel's saying here, because he's like trying to say, what the hell is this guy doing, right? We're giving him tons of money and he's going around and lying.
With this missile attack, or this missile launch, I should say. And we just can't have full faith and trust by giving a leader $100 billion and having him say, I'm not telling you where the money went.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the first clue, and I've said this before, and it's a general thing in life is if you're giving someone money and long term, and then all of a sudden the person that's giving the money comes up to you and says, you know, I want to look at the books. I want to see how you're spending this money. That's not a good sign. It's like if you're in a project and you're spending your money on a project from management, and all of a sudden the top CFO or CEO comes up to your project and says, you know, I want to take a look how you guys really spending this money. I don't know if you guys have been in business, but that's not a good sign. That's not something like, oh, wow, this is good. I'm glad we got his attention. No, it's not a good sign. That's what Trump did. Trump was like, was Zelensky like, I want to see how we're spending this money exactly. What are you doing with it? And we want an accounting of this money. According to Trump, $350 billion. Who knows? We don't know the exact number. It goes around. I mean, billions. And then Zelensky, for some reason, and again, maybe your Europeans can explain this. I think it's just a Zelensky thing, because it doesn't make a sense to me as an American that you would say, I don't know, we lost like half of it. I'm like, what? How much you lose? Half of it? You don't know? No, don't know what happened to it. Never got it. I'm like, what do you mean never got it? What do you mean? Why are you just telling me this now? That'd be, again, you're in a business, because I used to be in business, right? You're running a big project, millions of dollars. The big boss comes up, says, I want to look how you're spending this money. And they're like, wait a minute, where's half the money? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know where it is. And and Zelensky doesn't think like, oh shit, it's time to pack my bags and head to France. He doesn't care. It's like, I don't know. What? Should I know that answer to that question? Yeah, I don't know what happened to half the money. Just don't know. We need more though. I'm like flabbergasted. I'm like, are you serious? But I guess Zelensky's serious. He thinks this is actually a answer that is a good look. I don't know. But if you read the body language, and it's just not just like a couple of people on Trump's team, it's just like everyone really has a look like, what the fuck is Zelensky doing? It's like, we don't even quite understand what he's doing. Clutch fan, did you see Trump's exchange with the governor of Maine? I did. Let me show that. That was excellent. And yeah, this is really good. I'll show you. So thank you that, and we'll do this. And I know we're talking a lot about foreign affairs, and I haven't talked about Ukraine for quite a while, but in a way, this relates to domestic affairs because Trump wants to wrap up this whole Ukraine, but because as Trump said, we have a big, beautiful ocean between us and Europe, and this really shouldn't be any of our business, what's happening in Ukraine. And mostly Trump's now wants to stop the bleeding. He doesn't want other people to die, so he literally wants to stop the bleeding. But also figuratively, he wants to stop the economic bleeding into Ukraine. Like, no, we can't give $350 billion to some bullshit cause that's going to lose. And we definitely can't spend that much money when some asshole, when we ask what happened to the money, so I don't know what happened to half of it. We can't have someone, and we can't have someone when we bring our top negotiators over there, my vice president, my secretary of state, and then this little bastard lies to their face. Not an hour later, he's bad-mouthing them and lying. It turns out he lied to J.D. Vance and Rubio. And J.D. Vance and Rubio are like, I would love to hear them what they said. They say, fucking bitch of what this guy's doing. And I don't know. But you can't do that. So Trump is like, yeah, we're getting out. We're getting out of this because it's not really our thing. And the guy over there, obviously, he's a crook. He's a liar. And we're done with this. All right. Well, we'll get into this exchange here. So let's get to it. Here's the exchange with the government. Okay, this is a background. Trump put an executive order nationally for schools that they can't have boys that pretend to be girls competing against girls. This shouldn't have to be said because boys are different than girls. I shouldn't have to even be saying this. I never thought years ago I would have to say this to serious people. Maybe people in the mental asylum you'd have to say this to, but not serious people. But anyway, over the past few years, we have Democrats and the woke people. They don't know the difference between boys and girls. They think it's interchangeable. And they think if a boy claims to be the girl, that makes him a girl, even though he's a boy. It's bizarre. And it's part of the reasons why the Democrats lost. They literally believe men can have babies. And I knew even as a little child, men can't have babies. And by the time you're in junior high and you have your basic biology, you should understand how babies are made. And men cannot carry babies. Oh, yeah, they can. Trans men can. No, a woman that cuts her hair short and takes hormones to grow a beard can have a baby. But she's a woman that's fucked up having a baby. It's not a man. Okay. So Trump told all the schools, you can't do this anymore. It's not fair to women. That's why we have women's sports. That's why we have men's sports, because women can't compete with men. We used to know that. Oh, that's sexist. Yeah, reality sexist. What can I say? Getting back from how I started this program, by the way, if you watch the Canadian hockey versus United States hockey, how many women were on each team? Yeah, 0. Why? Is it because they're sexist? I mean, Canada is supposed to be all about equity. Why didn't they have half the team be women skaters? Because they can't compete. Because there are differences between men and women. And it's not fair to have men competing against women or older boys competing against girls. A lot of people don't understand how great a difference there is, especially once you hit puberty between men and women. It's huge. It's not a little bit. It's huge. And, there's things like, I saw like in Australia, their women's national team, the women's best soccer team they have, their national team, they played a scrimmage against a team of high schoolers that were 15-year-old boys. So you have 15-year-old boys. So they're like a freshman or sophomore in high school. Is that when you're 15? And so they're not even the top high school team. They're just boys, 15-year-old boys, played the top adult women's team. And the boys won like 12-0 or something. It was just a massacre. And so people don't understand the great differences between men and women. It's huge. It really is. And it's not fair to have men competing against women. So that's why we have 2 different leagues, right? And everyone should know that. But the left is in this fantasy world because, I don't know, they watch Hollywood where girl boss, she's 110 pounds, but she can kick ass all these guys. Well, okay, that's nice fantasy, but that's not real world. And Trump says you can't do that anymore. If you're going to get federal funds, we're not going to tolerate that because it's not fair to women. So let's listen to this exchange here.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it?
So this is great. He's just asking her, are you not going to comply with my executive order?
Well, we are the federal law.
Yeah, but he is a federal law because he put in that.
Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. See you in court. Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
That was great. This is how you deal with it, right? This is how you have a man deal with a situation. Not apologize, not say, oh, well, is the governor of Maine here? Oh, well, we got to find some common ground. No, it's like, what are you doing, bitch? I did an executive order. You cannot do this. And if you don't want to do this, Maine, if you want to have your boys, because it happened in, they have pole vaulting, I guess it is. And the girl, Alicia, I had Happy Home Night. She was a pole vaulter. She was really good. But this pole vaulter is a boy. He wasn't that good as a boy. He came in like 5th place in pole vaulting. So he decided he was going to call himself a girl, and he came in 1st place. And obviously that's not fair. So Trump, that was a good exchange. It's a good exchange how he didn't back down, and he took that very seriously. So thank you for that. Yeah, that was definitely a good exchange. And let's see what else here we got on this here. A couple other domestic things that are happening. And everything's going so fast with the Trump administration this time, and it's good. Even the Department of Transportation, we used to have that gay guy that loved trains, or at least participating in trains, not locomotives, by the way. But now we got a serious man involved, so let's take a look. Here it is. This is the Transportation Secretary Sean Duff, and he's talking about California. They did a Zelensky where they took billions of dollars to make a high-speed train, which China does all the time, Japan does all the time. Somehow, California can't do it, though.
I want to address the protesters for a moment, if I could. I think they were chanting, build a rail. It's been 17 years and $16 billion, and no rail has been built. So if you want to go protest somewhere, if you want to shout at someone, go to the governor's mansion. Go talk to Democrats in the legislature who have brought us this crappy project, right? So we've seen over the course of the last month what DOGE has exposed with regard to fraud, waste, and abuse. And we're done with it. And you know what? You're going to have people who love fraud, who love waste, who love trains to nowhere. But all of us up here, we do not love fraud, waste, and abuse. We are going to use the taxpayer money efficiently and effectively, and this is a boondoggle.
Excellent that he was so he went in front of obviously a hostile crowd, presumably trans people and homosexuals, and yeah, he laid down the law there. So excellent there. Some more. Oh wow, we're coming up close. It's been a great time here. Let me do a couple other stories domestic. Hooters is reportedly filing for bankruptcy due to decline in customers. Hooters was always, because it's a kind of a play, on big tits. That's what it was, a play on the words. I've only been to Hooters like, I think once in my life, maybe twice. Once on a business trip, I was doing a gig in Las Vegas. Is for DreamWorks. So I was actually working with them. And I was in the hotel, and there happened to be a Hooters in the hotel. And I went in there. I didn't really care about it, but it was, you know, you have girls with big tits, young girls. That's what you want to see. That's their market. But what happened over time, oh, that's sexist. It's objectifying women. So they ended up getting ugly women, fat women. I think they even had a man then. And so they get away from their business model, and then no one wants to go to it. So, yeah, I'm not really surprised that's happening. But that was back in the day when you could appeal to men by having young, pretty women. But, oh, you can't do that. That's sexist. So that's where we are right now. A couple other things. This is just another example that we see all the time now. It should never happen. We should not tolerate these people. This guy should probably be in the cemetery, executed, or at least life in jail. This guy, Tyreek Martin, anyone named Tyreek is not going to probably go with the program, had 70 prior arrests. He was attempting to rape a 34-year-old woman in a subway near Times Square. They had bystanders, thankfully, pulled him off. But this guy, and this is typical, it wasn't his first arrest. He had been arrested 70 times prior. So the question is, why is this asshole out why is this animal, this savage, out among people? He can't live among people. We shouldn't have to put up with him. Personally, I wouldn't keep him in jail. I would just execute him. I don't have tolerance for people that have been arrested that many times and convicted. You know, I could get it. You know, sometimes maybe you do mistakes. You could change your life, whatever. But after 70 times, no. You just need to be in the cemetery. I've said no tears over that. Yeah, and some people just aren't compatible, I guess. So, you know, sorry. If you can't control yourself and live, you know, if you have to try to rape innocent women just standing there, we don't need you. And you can go elsewhere. So let me see here. Uh-oh, my stream Power Live is down for a second. Looks like it went down. So... all right, so I don't know if I got any power chats. It was up, but just it's a little buggy today. But we're kind of, I think we're about done here. Yeah, I think we're about done for today. Let me see if I have any miscellaneous stuff here. Yeah, I think that would be it for tonight. So thank you for being here. Oh, there it goes. There you go. Thank you, Damien. I got a couple other power chats. The power chats were briefly down, but now they're up again. Steve Campbell. Thank you, Steve. Those streams with Z-Man have been great. You two are so similar that every time you all get together, I can hear people, let me tell you about my best friend. Yeah, we do have a lot of good synergy together, Z-Man and I. We plan to do it every Wednesday wrap up. And let me do a shout out. He's got a lot of great content. If you haven't, go to the Z-Man blog, and he's got his podcast every Friday. And I'm not just saying it to try to puff him up, but I literally do read him every morning. He always posts first thing in the morning. He's a good speaker. He really is. He's got a great voice. He's got a radio voice. But he's really intelligent. He's a really good writer. And it's great that he's finally shown his face and stuff now. I think he's moved away. He was in the Baltimore. Now he's in West Virginia. So he's got out of the jungle and more civilized area. So I'm glad that Z-Man has done that. And yeah, so that's it. Damien, did you see the mayor of LA fired the fire chief? I saw that. Also, you should see The Monkey. It's a great movie. We saw The Monkey today. Sasha's a huge movie buff. She's an AMC Stubs, and we see movies like every week now. And I did see the movie The Monkey. And we will probably on Night Owls, when we do Night Owls again, we'll probably cover that I did think it's the monkey is I thought it'd be like a Chucky the doll, like a possessed doll kill people, but it's a little different. It's kind of a lot of horror. I would say a lot of the horror movies now are like horror/comedy. And this definitely, The Monkey is a horror/comedy movie. It's more of a comedy than it is a horror. It's kind of funny. And it's gory, but not that bad compared to like Terrorizer was like, man, this is brutal. But The Monkey's is kind of the over top silly. But I did see that, so thank you. Sasha is definitely a big horror fan, and she likes movies too. And I think I got we got a big one here. Whoa, a big rant. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. Go on eBay and buy a sword, to kill snakes or whatever. Cold steel is cheap and effective. Thank you, Dylan. I will buy a sword. And Dylan's a great supporter. And if you want to join my, the reason to join my Substack to go to the roundtable, Dylan, is a price of admission. He's a really funny guy. It reminds me of Sam Hyde. He's kind of got that sense of humor. Thank you, Dylan, for such a generous rant. I will get a sword on that. I had a friend in Eureka Springs that sells swords. I should get it from him. So thank you so much for that. And guys, thank you. Let's see, it's weekend, so I'm kind of wrapped up until Monday morning, unless Sasha and I don't know if we'll do one Sunday or not, but our night owls is kind of just based on Sasha's schedule and stuff. But at least Monday at 11 a.m., the Ramsey Paul Show would be back. So thank you. It's been a great stream, and I will talk to you guys later.